everyone, greetings from National Skills Network. This is Madhuri, and let me begin by asking you a question. How many of you use UPI like GPay or PhonePe or Paytm or any of these? I'm sure all of us are using this as often and as frequently as possible, and it's become a part of our lives. Hasn't this made financial transactions very easy? Now, at the touch of the screen that is there on the mobile phone, we can make any type of financial transaction. But what about the young people? Are they aware of the repercussions of most of these transactions? Do they have the necessary financial skills to plan how much to save and what to spend? So, between spending and saving lies a big area where we need to have a bit of education and skills to learn more about finances, about investment, and so on. So, with this in focus, with this in mind today, I have a guest with me who's going to share her expertise in financial education and literacy. So, let me invite you all to the conversation with Dr. Uma Shashikant, who's the chairperson, Center for Investment Education and Learning, and I'm so glad to introduce her and get her expertise to learn more on this topic. So let's get going. So let me get started by asking you about the importance of including finance in school curricula, let's say CBSE, which has already started including these subjects. So what is your perspective about financial literacy, let's say at the school level? And how do we make sure that children acquire these skills at a very young and impressionable age?
It is. Thank you for inviting me to talk to you today. It is a pleasure. Always happy to talk about money and finance, something that I've been doing for work for a while now. Um, it is. It is an important life skill. Knowing to manage money is an important life skill. We There are really two ways of looking at it. One is life skill acquired over time, handling money, making financial decisions. The other is the conceptual orientation towards how all this works. I think that is what should primarily feature in school education. Children must know the magic of money, as I would call it, how money moves, how money works, and how you are part of that cycle and how you make those decisions. So, there are conceptual understanding that is required. Then there is hands-on, trying to do something yourself, mock kind of sessions. And then there is also the whole acquiring life skills in a sense. It's a process, as I said, but at least you can get started in school. Yes, definitely, money and finance should feature in school curriculum. There's really no doubt about that.
Yeah, so in the CBSE curriculum and also from the vocational side, there are subjects which are related to banking and finance which have been introduced. Now, considering this, what do you think are the most important practical skills? Because often we see when we talk about money, like we also have programs from RBI, for instance, which are awareness creation type of programs. How much of it really gets translated into practicals, and what is your view about making it a bit hands-on so that they assimilate and acquire these skills?
Yeah, that's a challenge in designing syllabus, you see. We are ever grateful for the teachers who taught us numbers and the alphabets, right? So they're like fundamental to what we are doing later. I think more than anything else, financial literacy needs to be able to provide the grounding
Mm.
the grounding that people require to deal with money in their lives. And one of the things which I always talk about is that the idea that money is a limited resource. You see, today in the age of digital payments and ATM, many youngsters hold this belief that money is just available on tap, you know.
Mhm.
And there is a certain, what do you say, disappointment if the parent says money is not available. No, we can't spend on this. We can't do this. So there is a general confusion. This is a life skill, as I said. There's something that happens every day. So it is important for curriculum to provide skills in allocation, in making decisions about money, in understanding that except for the small privileged percentage of people for whom money will be unlimited for everyday use, the super rich. For
Yeah.
most others, the essential money skill is making decisions with money, you know,
Hmm.
and also understanding, understanding that there is a market.
Hmm.
Children don't have an idea of what a market is like, the design of markets. Unfortunately, today is not even taught in grad school curriculum. Market design is an essential idea where you are trying to understand how people interact, uh, how the rules of the plays are determined by practice. Children
Hmm.
need to have an understanding of how markets work, how markets are designed. And then, of course, money as asset and return, the whole idea of assets, risk, and return. So, most financial literacy curricula tend to go along these contours, understanding financial transactions, understanding financial markets, and then understanding assets, return, and investment. If I were to introduce something into that thing, I
Yeah.
would say there are essential concepts that drive this, So it's
Hmm.
important to put those as well into the curriculum. And if
Okay.
those exercises that are given to the children are able to tell them that money is limited, and therefore, if you allocate money to this, there is no money for that,
Okay.
if you're able to bring that understanding as well, it might help.
So, when you say, allocation and things, does it mean something like budgeting skills or something? Uh, can we go a bit deeper into the example?
Okay, let's put it like this. I mean, it's an
Yeah.
example. I think I've alluded to it in my columns as well. Now, ask your child, for example, as a practical exercise to plan their birthday. Allocate an amount for their birthday and
Hmm.
tell them your clothes, your gifts, your party decor, the return gifts for your children, for your
Friends. Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
is all going to be subject to this number. Okay, this is the number we can spend. Now
Hmm.
you go ahead and decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I think, a very relatable example. It will resonate with a lot of people. I think stretching this into the classroom also, probably, in the school, the teacher can extend this for some kind of an event or celebration in the class, right? Where students can get together and work on these things. So this is more at the school level, what we just discussed. Now coming to the higher education front, where we see that when these the present generation, for example, goes into the workforce, um, they will have a very different kind of a work, like gig work, insecure kind of situations. There could be contractual work. What I mean to say is the comfort of secure salaries coming every month is like, this is kind of dwindling, as we can see. In such a scenario, we still see many young people, like you already mentioned, the ease of access to payments, for instance, impulsive buying, all these things somewhat look a bit thoughtless sometimes. Maybe I belong to a different generation. So, because we are taught to save mostly by our parents, but today we believe they are all, into spending. Is there something which you can conceptualize here and probably share your thoughts about how certain things can also become a part of the higher education?
See, saving is an insurance for the future. So if you have fear of the future,
Yeah.
if you worry that you may not be able to earn money in the future, then you tend to sacrifice spending and you decide to save the money instead. In an optimistic environment with opportunities as we see in India, saving is really very distant. When you talk of a rainy day, people are not seeing the rainy day.
Hmm.
So it's a social trend. The social trend towards spending is coming from the confidence to earn money. Look, I can find a job, I can earn money, and I'm willing to do. And there are no fixed ideas of what a job should be, the gig economy, as you spoke about. So, spending is a reflection of the confidence people have in earning. And I think it is a positive thing. People should live life with optimism. And I think that's a good thing. But in terms of learning, there are these, what do you say, precepts. For example, tax.
Yeah.
there is a structure which taxes a part of your income, and you need to, rather than knowing I do this, I will save tax, I will not save tax, you need to understand why there is a tax, on how tax systems are structured, what are direct and indirect taxes, and how you pay, and what compliance is about, and concepts like this. And then the idea of leverage,
Yeah.
how borrowing is helps you leverage your business, but at the same time how it creates risks. Then the whole idea of capital, you know,
Mm.
um, having capital, that whole financial structure which we talk of, your own money, your borrowed money, your assets, the returns that they generate, then your strategies for recouping that money, you're managing working capital on both sides. While you borrow, there are also, while you deal with suppliers, there are also people who will take your products on debt. So your understanding of that whole financial structure, how your business or your wealth or your, what do you say, net worth, as we call it, can grow.
Yeah.
And this whole idea of valuation, the presence of a market, rather than just talking about unicorns and saying that, oh, this guy started so small and he became so big. What
Yeah.
needs to come into the curriculum is a ringside view of that entire process, how that business grew, what financial decisions were taken, and what challenges come in the way. Now, if we are able to bring this into the curriculum, somebody is able to understand how money works.
Yes.
you know
Yeah.
you're able to conceptually show, a balance sheet is a concept. Ultimately, the idea of assets and liabilities and growth, it's a cycle, so but it's available for someone to see.
Mm.
And then you're able to understand the role of various players. You know what the stock market is doing here, you know what the banker is doing here, you know what the government is doing. So you're able to see the role of the various entities and then the rules of the game, very much like the road.
Mhm.
The financial market is a system very much like the road and the traffic.
Yeah.
So your license, your vehicle, its speed, the speed lights, the presence of the roads, the presence of pedestrians. So financial market is also a place like this where you acquire the skill of navigating the space, knowing who the players are and what the game is about. And I think that magic needs to come into education.
Mhm. Yeah.
Somewhere I think when we talk about money, we get all serious, and sometimes the curriculum can get boring.
Yeah.
Children don't have the appreciation for why I'm doing this. So,
Right.
so if you're able to bring this magic of saying how 100 rupee in the hands of one person creates an economy of 1,000 rupees, because you buy something, that guy uses that money to buy something, that whole velocity
Yeah.
of money, as we call it. So those are magical things about money which I think youngsters should know.
Mm. Yeah, so I think what you're trying to say is like the big picture of finance and the big picture of money, how it connects with other stakeholders, other entities in the entire market, right? That's what you're trying to connect.
Yes,
And
yes,
I think this also provides the context for somebody to understand about money at a young age, because I always felt the growing up, like I thought, okay, only when I earn or when I have money in my hand, I'll worry about it. You know, the whole thing about money, but till when you're a student you only think about, okay, it's something that's there with me, I can spend or I can save, but other things come as we grow up, right? So I think
yeah,
that's where it is making a lot of
yeah.
sense.
That's also a problem, Madhuri, in a sense that um, if you make financial education very money transaction centric,
Ah,
then you lose the context.
yes.
See, you're not going to remember when you're going to take a home loan when you're 30. You're not going to go back to your what you learned in school and remember,
Hmm.
how that interest rate was calculated. It's at that point when you have to take a decision that you are wondering how the EMI is calculated. Should I take a fixed or a floating? Should I do a 10-year loan or a 15-year loan? You want to know those concepts when you have the context in which you are actually applying it. So it's very difficult to pick a real life context
Yeah.
and take it into school
Hmm.
and create a simulation and say, assume that you are borrowing and how will you do it? I mean, it's very difficult to teach finance like that.
Yeah, I think that's not possible. It's
Yeah,
only
it's
in
not
real
possible.
life that we get to learn.
Yeah, sometimes the financial literacy courses tend to be ineffective because you are putting together what you believe are things that somebody must know. But then it is lost along the way because the people who are learning don't know why it is important to know those things.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So one more important point is I would like to know from you is about women and money, like the young girls and the students, the women students. Because we know as a society, when even when women start earning, I'm sure the finances are not wholly managed by them. And I've also read your articles and your views on this. So, can we have a bit of that also in this conversation? Would you want to share something for girl students? Any
Yeah.
important points?
Yeah, I would just want to mitigate that difference. Everyone should know about money. So you should not abdicate managing money just because you're a woman. That's a shame, you know. You shouldn't be doing that. Um, uh, it is a social
Mm,
situation that we have that it's not just in India, world over. It is the case that like men went to war, men manage money. So
mm,
we are no longer fighting wars and acquiring territories for the most part. I mean, the oil related wars, we'll put them aside for a moment, but we are still not, men are not preoccupied with war and victory anymore. So women also should be managing money. So there is no doubt about that. It's not a gender issue in terms of money and its knowledge. More women must participate, and I think that knowing that it is not really very difficult, I
mm.
which is why I went back to the fundamental concepts in financial literacy in school and in colleges.
Yeah.
If you are able to provide a context in which somebody appreciates, okay, this is how it works.
Mm. Yeah.
This is how it works, because we tend to get lost in the rules and the process and
Yeah.
forget the essential structure, So if you're able to get the sense of the essential structure, then your involvement is going to be higher.
Mm.
And I also think that this whole patronizing view of, like, oh, you don't know, you can't do this, needs to go,
Mm.
you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So somewhere there is also research which shows
Mm.
that there may be certain aspects about money which may not be appealing to the woman. There are gender studies of this kind that say that you're delegating it to men because you don't, it doesn't interest you in a sense.
Mm.
So the financial literacy ideas that we are talking about today are important to change that conditioning, where
Yeah.
we are able to say that earning, spending, saving, investing, giving are tasks we do all our lives.
Right.
So women don't have to just do the earning and the spending and not do the others. You
Yeah.
can be part of the other decisions as well.
Yeah.
Um, so it can be done. And what would I tell women? I would just tell women that there is nothing rocket science about it. It's so commonsensical, and it should be done. Do not hold yourself back from making financial decisions based on your gender, is what I would say.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And that's very encouraging to all of us. For most of us, as you all already pointed out, we may not be really interested or show that much of interest in going into the details of finances and making a decision. So now, towards the closure of this discussion, there is one important point which I would like to know from you about is if we have to define something like successful financial education in India, let's say about formal education, which is at the school level or the college level, what do you think should a young person, a young adult, be prepared to do at a certain age, let's say about 20 or 21 years, with a lot of confidence, when it comes to money matters?
Yeah, so you can't see education's objectives tend to be, differently defined in various societies. Now, it is a reality in India that we are looking at education as the provider of employment, how employable someone is if someone picks this up. if you're able to take financial literacy out of this and say that I'm not learning finance because I want to get a job,
Hmm.
but I am learning finance because this, irrespective of which job I do, I could be a doctor, an engineer, architect, but I'm going to be having to manage money and make financial decisions all my life.
Hmm.
So if you're able to separate the two, so on the one hand, you are providing skills for specific job requirements, which is one part where you are looking at a job role and saying that these are the requirements for this job role, so this person has to know this for being in the market for that job. Okay, that is one part of the story. There's the other part of the story, which is that this is an everyday thing for everyone to acquire, just like math and language. If
Yeah.
you're able to bring finance to that level of ease,
Hmm.
then we might be able to make progress in terms of enabling more informed decisions from people. So the simple idea of time value of money, you know you don't want more and more people, younger generation, to be talking about, the price of gold has gone up like this, or price of house has gone up like this. These are all gone up because of inflation, right? So you're not you want to have an idea of things like compounding, things like time value of money, things like leverage, things like assets, risks, and returns, and the idea of a capitalistic market. So interesting, like a democracy. So, are we able to bring into the curriculum conceptual frameworks that enable making earning decisions, spending decisions, cards, the presence of finance, credit cards or loans or personal loans, how we are able to use these products that are available in the market, investing. A
Hmm.
lot of youngsters show very early interest in stock trading because it is so speculative, and it is like there is a certain adrenaline rush in trying to do it. But many of them who persist with it go further into fundamental analysis, technical analysis, understanding the basics, because you don't want to mindlessly do things. So, being able to show how these things work. And then, of course, when we talk of long term, building assets for yourself, building your own net worth, um, how the choice of just living paycheck to paycheck
Yeah.
might be risky for yourself. You may not be able to take the holiday you want to, for example.
Hmm.
How some decisions are really long-term decisions. And
Yeah.
with youngsters, they have a limitation that their prefrontal cortex is still developing. So their ability to postpone a decision, their ability to look long term, is limited. I think financial literacy offers a very good tool to kind of expand that frontier, to push that and say that a few decisions, when taken with deliberation, when taken with a long term orientation, tend to provide results. It's a challenge, but I think it's immensely doable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these are very important points, that can be put together to look at what it means to be, successful in conveying the essence of financial literacy and understanding formally through a curriculum. So thanks a lot, Dr. Umar, for sharing your views today and all
Thank
these
you.
practical points. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. It is
Thank
a skill development is a big task, it's a difficult and a big task. I'm so happy that you are so closely involved with this, and you are seriously looking at financial literacy as one of those essential pillars there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done there, and I'm so glad
Right.
that NSM is doing
Thanks.
a lot there. Thank you very much, and all the very best.
Thank you.